Oh wow, do I love playing Minecraft? But now I'm bored. I wanna play some game. Not just any other game, but something dumb. Something that doesn't take too much space, and most importantly, something that is so obscure that probably no one even knows about it. Oh, hello there. Hi, I'm Clydes, everyone's favorite, albeit only, internet Dingo-Dragon, and today I want to talk about NetEase Games. To those of you who don't know, NetEase Games is an entertainment software company based in China. Thank you, Wikipedia. Though they exclusively make mobile games, they actually have a Steam page with some games on it. It isn't a lot compared to what they have released on the Play Store, and literally half of their releases are met with mixed results. But despite what people say about them, I kinda grew a strange unexplainable fascination for the company, and I have started to play some of their games as well. I don't really play them that often because I literally have better games out there, but I do lurk around and scout at their activities in the distance. But I decided that today is a good day to review all of their games that they have to offer on the Steam store. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Lost Light is a third-person shooter where you enter an area, collect resources and equipment, and get out of that area. You can then use those resources to upgrade your shelter or earn money to buy more equipment. The closest comparison that I and multiple others think of is the game Escape from Tarkov, and it basically follows the same formula with some aspects to differentiate itself from it. What those differences are, I don't really know because I don't play that game. I just watch enough gameplay to know what the game is about, so don't expect me to compare the two to each other. Anyways, the game itself is alright, but the gunplay is way too shaky and the movement feels quite stiff, especially when jumping around. Leaning left to right is barely useful as the horizontal shift of the camera doesn't really warrant using it around walls, especially in a third-person setting. Oddly enough, the game has a very in-depth gun customization system and 4 large maps which are fairly detailed. The graphics are also alright. Sure, there are obvious polygons here and there, but you can't really afford to put a lot of detail into your models if you're planning to fit 4 large maps into 11 gigabytes. Personally, I think these flaws are not too detrimental to the experience, but it certainly would be a lot better if the developers spend their time to make the previously mentioned elements be better suited for PC players or even just players in general. Also, some slight improvements to the graphics and models to take advantage of the PC's generally stronger computing power wouldn't hurt as well. I rate it a 6 out of 10. It's the most refined game released by the time of writing, with in my opinion pretty good visuals when accounting for the game's storage. What's dragging it back is the stiff feeling movement and the somewhat awkward combat and shaky gunplay. It's pretty much okay. I don't think it's a complete alternative to Tarkov, and it's probably terrible in every single way, but if you're only willing to get the game if it goes out of beta, probably or probably not because you visited the website in an attempt to get the game, but the words closed beta intimidate you so much that you decided that perhaps waiting for it to go on full release would be a better course of action even though it's not really that big of a deal, then this is one of the alternatives Steam has to offer. Okay, someone's been rummaging around here. Oh, it's an actual player. No! SuperMechaChampions is a battle royale game. Great. I'll be honest with you, I dislike battle royale games. There's something so off-putting about dropping into a map, gathering resources and weapons, only to die to people 10 times better than you. So if you think I would talk positively about this game and not let my personal biases get in the way, you are absolutely right. The general concept of the game is just a battle royale game, but get this. You get a giant deployable mech. Seems simple in concept, but is an absolute game changer, and it doesn't matter if it's balanced or not. Going into a giant mech and destroying everything and everyone gives me a feeling of power. And the mech to mech battles are just pretty epic, with each mech having abilities that spice up the fight more than just shooting guns that you probably already memorized the stats for. This is by far the most unique battle royale game that I have come across, and I can play this game all day long. It's what I would do if the game didn't absolutely suck. It's an absolute shame how bad this game is. The movement is just terrible and the guns feel like, I don't know, but they don't feel right. And the sprinting doesn't even feel like sprinting. The game in every aspect feels like walking through waist-high water. Only piloting the mechs is fun, while everything else is just bad. And having one fun element amongst the hundreds of bad ones isn't good enough of an incentive for a large majority of people to play this game. It's just a waste of potential that makes me pretty sad thinking about it. 4 out of 10, just terrible in every aspect. The only thing carrying it is the extremely unique and fun gimmick that the game revolves around. If the devs want my rating to go higher, they will have to rework basically everything, especially the movement and gunplay. Mechas cannot respawn. No, I'm gonna be the only one with the mech. What did I say? Cyber Hunter is just your basic FPS shooter game. There isn't much for me to mention. The graphics look outdated and the animations look rough, but that is to be expected from a game worth almost 4 gigabytes. This game just feels like the most soulless out of the other games they have made, and I actually don't know what to say, so I'm just gonna outline some bullet points. The guns are weirdly accurate, like the crosshair doesn't really match their accuracy. It's possible to hit all headshots just by hip firing. The face customization is weirdly in-depth, which caught me off guard. Yeah, this is the most mediocre game in the series. However, I will leave my rating as inconclusive as it's just based off of a single round, and I don't think it would be enough to judge the game as a whole, especially since there's also a Battle Royale mode and a Loot Lord mode, which just sounds like Battle Royale mode with extra steps, but okay. I could just play a game a lot more, but queuing for a match takes too long and I am impatient and also working on a tight schedule. Infinite Lagrange is a sci-fi game about spaceships and space stuff with this space gates that does stuff. Oh wow, 10 out of 10 description by me there. These space gates are called Lagrange points and they connect 2 points together like a wormhole. And if I didn't know they were called Lagrange points, I would have still thought the game was called Infinite Language. This game is just relatively simple. You own a space station, you build stuff to attack stuff, or mine for resources. From the screenshots, I thought this would be an RTS game, but no, the space battles are entirely just for visuals. There is no way to take control of a ship, change their formation, or even change their targets. All you can do is watch as either they slowly die or your enemies slowly die. This means the game more focuses on grinding out the resources and researching new technologies and blueprints. And I don't know about you, but when I hear grinding and mobile game in the same context, you can assume there would be microtransactions. And there is. There isn't really any in-depth mechanics, research trees don't count, and nothing about the game draws people in besides being free to play. 5 out of 10, it could be worse, but it could also be better. I wish there would be more gameplay in the combat than just arranging your fleet before battle. Onmyoji is just your typical gacha turn-based RPG that is also very Japanese. There isn't much to say about this game. The graphics and art style is nothing to take note of, and the gameplay is just your typical power circle or triangle based matchmaking with the probable synergy of certain characters with certain characters. And also, there isn't really any story. All there is a loose collection of short stories that are vaguely connected to each other. Well, at least for as long as I played it. And worst of all, you can't really resize your window to fit the whole screen. Here's my OBS recording, but even with it being generic and having a barely coherent story, there are some small things that I have noted down that I find interesting, but they ultimately don't change the game in any significant way. One of which is the stage navigation thing, where you can walk around the environment to interact with various NPCs. Most of the time they're enemies, but sometimes they're not. And the overall style of the game is somewhat unique. The way the characters are positioned makes it feel like you're watching it through a stage with actors acting out a story. This is reinforced by the environment looking temporary, by having objects that resemble cardboard cutouts or makeshift props. The wild and weird animation complement this to an extent, reinforcing the stage-like essence of the game, and though this is likely not intentional, it somehow manages to add to the theme of it all in its own weird and wacky way. I give this game a 2 out of 10. Despite some unique aspects in it, it doesn't make up for its numerous flaws. And that is all that the fabled NetEase Games have available on their Steam page. Currently, what are my thoughts, you say? Well, they are games that really aren't special. Most of them lack that finishing polish the other games have, especially the earlier titles. They clearly have no competition against the other games available on Steam. Would I recommend that you play their games? Well, it depends if you're as forgiving of a person like me. Perhaps you could afford to waste some time trying out their games, but beware, these games feel like those plastic toys that were made in China. Because they were literally made by a company based in China. And before you comment it, yes, I am aware that there is microtransactions and pay-to-win favored monetization, but again, a lot of their games are mobile ports. Have you seen any mobile games these days? If I were you, I would just ignore the microtransactions. The devs will just give you a lot of free stuff in some of their games for participating in random events anyways. So why do I take a fascination to them? Why am I so interested in a company that makes games with so many flaws? Well, for me, I just want to turn off my brain sometimes. These games don't require a lot of skill to do well at, and coming across a real player and not a bot is a rare occurrence. But mainly, it's the game themselves. Sometimes the gimmicks and gameplay features that the game offer are pretty neat, and the subpar execution of it all just hits the sweet spot for me. I would probably love it even more if the games were actually executed well, but there's still something about the jack of these games that makes it charming in the opposite direction. If that doesn't sound like a good reason as to why I play some of their games, I also said, but despite what people say about them, I kinda grow a strange unexplainable fascination for the company. And indeed, that fascination is unexplainable. Look, I know that they're a soulless corporation, but we live in a world of capitalism and ad players disguising themselves as games littering the mobile game market and leaderboards. At least these guys had the decency to make a somewhat competent game. And with their upcoming game, not developed by NetEase, wait, is NetEase the publisher or the developer? And with their upcoming games that are probably under the name of NetEase looking better than ever, you can assume that I'll be scouting them and their actions for a little while longer. Because I will.